All right, gang, welcome in. We're talking 20 quarterbacks that the Jets could be looking at for this upcoming year and into the future. We're going to go through on the roster, free agent targets, veteran trade options, and younger trade options. This is an article by the Athletic's Zach Rosenblatt, so I want to go through and give you guys my thoughts on each one of these players. First on the list is Tyrod Taylor, already on the roster. Clearly, I think most fans feel like he should be the bridge quarterback, or at least the backup quarterback that could, maybe even like a 6-game sample size, bridge to the next quarterback. I don't think anyone really trusts him to stay healthy throughout the duration of the season, which is probably why you want to bring someone else in here. Zach mentions that Garrett Wilson really likes him. The Jets locker room really likes him, which I think is a step in the right direction. And if you can, get these young kids to get through maybe another growing year, then maybe it's A-okay by me. Tyrod Taylor's going to be here, so I like Tyrod as an option. Jordan Travis, going to be more of a roll of the dice. I really liked him coming out of FSU last year, but the gruesome leg injury is something that's a major concern. The hope was that you were going to have Aaron Rodgers for this 2025 season back when you drafted him, and then you'd get an opportunity to see him before investing heavily into a quarterback in 2026. So you just don't know what you have in him. I don't think he should play a factor into what your decision-making is on quarterback for this offseason. It should almost be seen as like a bonus opportunity for him to perform and compete. So I hope he gets an opportunity. I want to see him in training camp and preseason and whatnot. He gets into free agent targets. Sam Darnold. Oh, man, could you imagine a scenario where Sam Darnold ends up back in New York? I love me some Sam Darnold. I really do. Guy handled everything the right way. We didn't have a team around him when he was here. In hindsight, you probably exercise his fifth-year option, keep him around, trade down from that number 2 pick that you took Zach with. And maybe you're right the wrong that otherwise, was wronged. I don't see Sam as a realistic option for the New York Jets. I think he's probably going to go to the Rams. And how much are you going to have to pay him? I have no idea. But I like him. I just don't see it happening. Justin Fields, that's sort of the option I've kind of landed on in most of my thought processes, just because I don't think Fields is going to cost you a whole heck of a lot of money. I think he's still young enough, turns 26 in March, he notes. He was like, was he 4-0 or 4-2, I think, as a starter this year or something along those lines, whatever it was. Relatively decent. Obviously has a relationship with Garrett Wilson and Jeremy Ruckert, so there's some comfortability-ness there. And I don't think rolling the dice on him prevents Jordan Travis from being the guy. I think it kind of gives you 3 semi-like-minded or like play style sort of players, and then allows you still to draft a quarterback in 2026 if he doesn't pan out. So that he's kind of the one that I've sort of liked the most on most lists. Russell Wilson, Muji got a close-up look at Russell Wilson. I can't see any way this dude's actually an option for the New York Jets. So I'm just going to move on from there. Russell Wilson is not going to the Jets next year. Not happening. Daniel Jones was picked up by the Vikings. He's listed as an option on here. I don't see this as a realistic opportunity to come back to New York. I think the Vikings are more likely to hold on to him as a potential bridge quarterback while J.J. McCarthy sort of rehabs that leg. Jacoby Brissett. The previous regime was huge fans of Brissett. The Jets were interested in signing him last offseason, but Brissett prioritized starting opportunity with the Patriots. Brissett didn't pass for 200 yards in any of his 5 starts and only threw 2 touchdowns. His time as a starter has passed. Why is he an option on here then? Ugh. I like Brissett as a backup, but not so much. We got our Tyrod Taylor. He's basically Tyrod Taylor, but I think Tyrod's better. Jameis Winston is an entertaining option. The press conferences that Jameis Winston has given in his time in the NFL is honestly one of the more entertaining things. And as someone that is on team just entertain me for 2025, like, I could totally see why fans would want to go this route. Tons of passing yards, touchdowns, interceptions, everything, good, bad, and ugly. Like, you might make the playoffs. You might have a top 5 pick like the Browns do. So, do they have a top 5 pick, or are they picking behind us? I think they're in front of us. I don't know. Look, I don't think Winston's coming here. I wouldn't hate it, though. Not the worst thing to go down as far as entertainment goes. Cooper Rush. Rush is more of a game manager, an ideal number 2 than someone you want to bank on as a starter. The 31-year-old threw for 1,844 yards, 12 touchdowns, 5 interceptions for Dallas last season, though he only completed 60.7% of his passes, even with a talented supporting cast, and doesn't offer much mobility. On a positive note, the Cowboys did win 4 of their last 6 games with Rush starting. I think the Cowboys offense is generally pretty good, and to sort of have that through however many games he played, what was it? I didn't even see how many games it was. I think I'm out on Cooper Rush. Not enough there for me to be enticed. Carson Wentz is an interesting option. Plays backup for the Chiefs right now. Was a former MVP candidate at one point, then tore his ACL. Then the whole thing happened with Nick Foles and him going, obviously not getting the Super Bowl. Now he's been backup on a Super Bowl team a few times. I wouldn't hate it. I think there's probably a reason why Carson Wentz has bounced around a few teams since being bounced as the starter. I don't know. These are all kind of like meh options. Like, of all the meh options, I'd probably want to go with like the cheapest of the options here. Maybe not the cheapest, but highest upside. And that to me is Fields, of the veteran, youngish free agent kind of guys. As far as veteran trade targets or cap casualties are concerned, Matthew Stafford is a friggin' interesting one. I really like Matthew Stafford a lot. I've brought his name up a few times over the course of the last year or two or so. Not necessarily in the Jets side of things. I think it's more likely that he gets traded to the Giants. They just hired his brother-in-law as quarterbacks coach. Apparently, Illuminor and Malik Neighbors were both tweeting about Matthew Stafford and have since deleted those tweets. I did not verify any of this. This is just coming from some of my Giants buddies, so they're super pumped on it. So I think Stafford's going to the Giants. I think Stafford's going to the Giants. I think Sam Darnold goes to the Rams. Kyler Murray at 27 years old. This is one that threw me off my game. Connor, you know who you are. Connor over at Take Flight Talk threw me for a loop when he said Kyler Murray was on this list. 27-year-old, inconsistent season with the Cardinals in 2024. His best game probably came against the Jets on November 10th, completed 22 of 24 passes, finished the season with 3,851 yards, 21 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, almost a 70% completion percent, 68.8. Rushed for almost 600 yards, 5 touchdowns. He's dynamic. His contract is reasonable at this stage. $18 million in base salary in 2025, $22.8 million in 26, $19.5 in 2027. The Cardinals would only incur a $10.7 million dead cap hit in 2025 if they cut him post June 1st, and could replenish some draft capital. Again, there aren't many ready-made replacements out there for Murray in the offseason, and Arizona likely wants to compete in 2025 playoffs. Yeah, I don't understand why the Cardinals would be doing this. I like Kyler Murray from like the athletic standpoint, short jokes aside and all that. My biggest concern with him is the head. Like, they wanted to add a clause in his contract initially that said he needed to study a certain amount of times per week. And that's a massive red flag. Now, maybe he's matured enough since then. If you could give up a pick for him, I mean, he's clearly, I think, the most upside quarterback right now. So I guess if he becomes an option, then yeah, I'd heavily consider it. I don't know what he would cost. Gotta think it's got to be the 7 pick at that point. Kirk Cousins, an option. He turned down the Jets once. I don't think he's coming here. I think there's a good shot he's probably going to the San Francisco 49ers to play with Shanahan on the vet minimum contract, more than likely. Derek Carr as an option, potentially. Like Cousins, Carr was a former Jets target in the offseason. The Jets acquired Rodgers. Carr was their fallback plan. He had met with New Jersey. It hasn't exactly worked out in New Orleans. Carr's numbers are solid on paper the last 2 years. A combined 40 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. I mean, look, I like Carr. I think that ship has probably passed. I think he's probably going to get more money than the Jets necessarily want to pay a quarterback right now anyway. Geno Smith. Man, all these throwbacks to like former Jet quarterbacks. Could you imagine? This feels like it would be a stretch here. I think maybe you see him link up with like Pete Carroll in Vegas, possibly. I don't think he's coming to the Jets. I like him. I don't see that happening. Jets quarterback coach Charles London was with Smith in Seattle last year, which could help. Passed for 4,300 yards, 21 touchdowns, 15 interceptions last season, 70% completion percentage, only carries a $14.8 million base salary. That's actually not bad. Again, what are you giving up for him? And does it really like move the needle that much? Jake Browning, Joe Burrow's backup, has limitations as a passer, but he was solid, filling in for an injured Joe Burrow in 2023. 1,868 yards, 11 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 71% completion percentage. Managed to put up 3+ 300-yard efforts. For a rarity among Jets quarterbacks, he'd only carry a $1.3 million cap hit. That is like very, very cheap. That's a high upside swing, I guess. I'll be honest, it's not someone I had on my radar at all. I'd probably have to do a little more research into him as a player. But I don't know. Is he gonna be cheap, or like what are you getting for him? Then we get down to the final three. And these three, I really like all three of them. I do think I'm going to go from the bottom. I'll go from bottom to the top here. Joe Milton, Bazooka Joe, highly impressive filling in for Drake May in Week 18, completing 22 of 29 passes for 249 yards and a touchdown, and a rushing touchdown as well. I like Joe Milton coming out of college. That was someone I would have been all right with the Jets taking a swing on late in the draft. Got burnt for that one a few times. People did not like that thought process. But the guy's an athletic freak. He's not getting traded from the Patriots to the Jets. That seems very, very unlikely. Hendon Hooker is a popular name that gets thrown around a lot. He is the backup for the Detroit Lions right now. Obviously, with Glenn and Engstrand coming over from Detroit, you could see that sort of relationship there. Man, I am sorry. I have something in my eye right now, and it's bugging the heck out of me. I don't feel like doing a second take. I would say if the Jets made the move for Hendon Hooker, even though he's going to be 27 years old, that's like crazy for a guy that's only been in the league 2 years. If we wanted to make that move, I would feel comfortable with it because Engstrand and Glenn have both worked with him and they feel like he might have some upside. So I would be fine with that one. A great option that I really like, Tanner McKee. He's the quarterback from Stanford from last year. He went in the 6th round. I really liked him coming out. It was kind of Joe Milton, Tanner McKee, and Jordan Travis were the 3 quarterbacks I wanted the Jets to take a swing on. One of those guys ended up going to the Eagles, has a Super Bowl ring, played behind Jalen Hurts. Let's see. In spot fill-in duty at the end of the regular season, throwing 2 touchdowns on 4 attempts in the Cowboys' blowout win, throwing for 269 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, Week 18 versus the Giants as well. So, like, did pretty well. Like, this is a smart dude, too. That's an interesting option. I don't know what he would cost. If he cost you like a 4th round pick, maybe you consider it, but then you sort of weigh this option of like, do you go with a 4th round pick quarterback this year where you get the extra year of contractual control, or does he provide enough upside from a already existing quarterback in the league, had a year, won a Super Bowl? Man, that's an interesting thought process there. I think of all these options, there's a few that I really like. I think Fields is the one that sort of gives me the most excitement because he was a 1st-round pick, has the connection with Garrett and Ruckert. Outside of that, maybe one of these like lower-end swings. I mean, short of if Kyler becomes available, you have to think he would be pretty high up on the list. Now, how does he perform in cold weather? Obviously, being short behind a 6'6" Joe Tippmann is probably something to consider as well. I don't know. Interesting thought processes all the way around. I think it's going to be a tough season for the Jets either way. Guys, let me know your thoughts on this list of quarterbacks. Is there a player out there that you particularly like that you would like to see the Jets go after? Let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, go Jets.